That is true. No easy answers. Let's pull in Jim Hansen. He's a security expert with the Center for Security Policy in Washington. Good afternoon to you, Mr. Hansen. What we are seeing in this investigation right now in Orlando appears to be possibly a homophobic, a closeted gay man, but also a man who pledged allegiance to ISIS. Is this, in your opinion, is this a nexus crime of gay hate and Islamist terror?
Well, you don't have to separate the two. Islamist terror contains a core belief that the crime of homosexuality is punishable by death. So you don't have to make it a separate issue. Whether or not Omar Mateen himself was gay is irrelevant. The Sharia adherent ideology that he believes in says that gays should be punished, thrown off roofs, burned, or shot. And he committed the act of being executioner for those people in that nightclub in Orlando, and that's a heinous crime.
Let me ask you a little bit more about the Orlando shooting, put it in context of what we've seen recently. This is the third time in recent years that someone was under FBI scrutiny and ended up carrying out a terrorist attack. We also had the Boston Marathon. We had the Texas shooting at an exhibition of Muhammad cartoons last year. This appears to be a major problem for the FBI. Is it?
Oh, absolutely. And another thing that points to what the motivation was, he and his wife were reported by Disney Resorts for potentially casing that place as a terror target, and the FBI did nothing with that. So I think that also points to whether or not this was a gay-related crime or whether it was Islamist terror. I think it was the second. And the problem our security agencies have here in the United States is that the Obama administration has handcuffed them and forbidden them to take Islam into account as a motivating factor. Now, we're not talking about all Muslims, but it is a fairly large percentage who believe that Sharia should be the law, it should be supreme above the U.S. Constitution, and people like Omar Mateen take that deadly seriously. Our security agencies need to be able to do their jobs and use that as part of their investigative factors.
So what should they have done differently, Mr. Hansen? I mean, you know, people looking at this crime want to know, why have all of these terror suspects, why have they been under scrutiny by the FBI and still been allowed to commit a crime? What if you were in charge, what would the FBI be doing differently?
I think at this point, the FBI needs to have the freedom to do surveillance inside mosques, to put informants inside mosques where there are preachers saying things like homosexuality should be punished by death. We have probably a dozen instances of imams in the United States making that exact statement out loud. And that's not even the stuff behind the doors of the mosques when they're conducting prayers. So it's a situation where political correctness has been allowed to trump the investigative requirements. If these people, like you mentioned, the Boston Marathon bombers, the Garland, Texas shooter, and now Omar Mateen had been put under surveillance, had their connections severely checked, and the police and other security agencies allowed to conduct those investigations based on the fact that Sharia adherence and Islamist ideology is a motivating factor, I think we would have found the connections that were necessary to stop these crimes.
Mr. Hansen, let me ask you, are you confident about this, that the FBI has no sources of information inside mosques that may be suspicious?
No, I don't think they do. And that's part of the problem, is they've been forbidden, and local law enforcement has been forbidden to actually cultivate sources like that unless they know of an impending attack. You mentioned the Boston Marathon bombers. The Tsarnaev brothers were members of the Islamic Society of Boston. There are over 13 jihadists who are associated with that mosque. The Tsarnaev brothers, other folks convicted of financing terror, a total of 13 people at that mosque who should have been stopped, and the FBI and others should have been allowed to do the kind of surveillance in there and to plant informants or cultivate them to find out why that is a nexus for terror.
All right, Jim Hansen with the Center for Security Policy in Washington. We're going to have to wrap it up there, Mr. Hansen. Thank you very much.